What's going on, everybody? Welcome to another edition of Knicks Latest, your go-to YouTube channel for everything New York Knicks. I'm Josh Rodriguez. We are bringing you the latest on Knicks rumors, Knicks headlines, Knicks trade proposals, scores, stats, all that good stuff when the season gets started. Make sure you subscribe below, hit the like button, drop a comment. There's not a lot going on. We are in early September. There are not a lot of rumors. There's not a lot of speculation. We just went through the whole Ben Simmons drama. He's no longer coming to the Knicks. I'm not going to sit here and read another trade proposal about Karl-Anthony Towns being traded to the Bucks for Giannis or LeBron James coming to the Knicks. We're not doing that here. We did it when it first started. Done with it. Want to have legit conversations with you. That's why I asked you to drop comments into the YouTube comment box, because I do take your comments and I do read them on the air, and that's what I'm going to be doing for most of today's episode. So make sure you're subscribed. Make sure you like the video. If you agree or disagree with anything that I say, feel free to drop a comment below. If you want to ask a question, drop a comment below. Definitely want to make this a community for Knicks fans going into the most important, most highly anticipated Knicks season since the Ewing era. A year where the Knicks can actually win the NBA championship. This has not come around often for us Knicks fans. So let's start the year off great. Start the year off good vibes, all that good stuff. All right. This comment comes from Greg James, and he says, "It doesn't matter what this team does unless they get rid of Towns. You can't win with a guy like that." And I use the term guy loosely. Now, this is a comment that was dropped a couple weeks ago. It's one that I've been kind of holding for a rainy day like today when there's not much to talk about. I understand the hesitation with having Karl-Anthony Towns as your second best player, what that does for your ceiling. And it has nothing to do with who he is as a person, who he is as a teammate, and what he can do on the offensive side of the ball. I think it has everything to do with the defensive side of the ball. And I think the Knicks' Achilles heel is what we saw last year and what we might see this year too if they're knocked out in the Eastern Conference Finals again or in the NBA Finals. It's that you have two minus defenders on the court because you need to have them, right? Jalen Brunson and Karl-Anthony Towns. And there are times where they try really hard and there are times where they surprise you and they play solid defense, but it's just not consistent enough to be anywhere near towards championship level. And that's my concern, right? So it's not necessarily so much that I don't think you can win with someone like Karl-Anthony Towns, because I think you can, right? I think you can build rosters around multiple players and win championships. But there are certain deficiencies that can be detrimental to a team's championship hopes, and not being able to guard the pick and roll and in this day and age is one of them. And Karl-Anthony Towns, you saw last year, had a really hard time in drop coverage or identifying what coverage they were in. We saw him and OG Anunoby going back and forth on the bench in one playoff game. And to me, yeah, maybe that does cap the ceiling of the New York Knicks a little bit. But, you know, we also saw throughout Karl-Anthony Towns' career how if you place him with the 5 like Rudy Gobert or Mitchell Robinson and he plays the 4, he doesn't have that defensive liability or responsibility that he has when he's the 5, right? He might get put in the pick and roll, but you do have that rim protector on the back end. He can clog the paint better. He can be a better rim protector because he's not expected to do as much. You saw that in the series against the Denver Nuggets when he was on the Minnesota Timberwolves. That's how they beat the Nuggets. They had 2 tall guys taking up room in the paint. So and I think that's what the Knicks look at when they see Mitchell Robinson and Karl-Anthony Towns. Like, that's the vision. The only problem is when you get pulled out to the perimeter and you're in a pick and roll with Jalen Brunson or whoever it is, you know, you have to know your coverages. You have to know how far to drop, when to drop. You have to know to hedge, how far out to hedge. And Karl-Anthony Towns just does not do that consistently. And you saw last year how that was a frustration, not with Tom Thibodeau, but just like with the team in general getting frustrated with him. So I can understand why somebody would say that, because at some point you got to think to yourself, well, maybe this guy will never learn. Maybe he just doesn't have the defensive skill set to be the type of player we need in order to make it to the next level. I think that's fair, but I do think he's so incredibly talented on the other end that he can make up for it. We saw in the series against the Detroit Pistons, hitting back-to-back shots that fade away in the corner, and then the long 3 in Game 3 to seal the victory there. Huge shot making in that game. In Indiana, he single-handedly took over Game 3 when the Knicks were down 2-0 going into Indiana. He took over that fourth quarter and he won that game for the Knicks. So, you know, there's good, there's bad. You got to take the good with the bad. His ceiling is so high offensively, though, that I don't want to say that you can't win a championship with him. I think you can. I don't think he can be your best player. I don't think you can revolve everything around him, but he can absolutely be a part of a championship winning team. I think he has a character to do so. Teammates seem to like him. He's a really friendly guy. He's not problematic. Good locker room guy. I don't see why he's a problem outside of the fact that he has a very hard time guarding the pick and roll and being in defensive coverages. I don't know if he'll ever, get to a point where he's comfortable in any type of defensive scheme. I'm interested to see what Mike Brown does here. He is somebody who kind of is the opposite of Tibbs. When he was in Sacramento, they had their problems defensively, and what he would do, he would get aggressive. He would trap pick and rolls. He would hedge high. Tibbs would drop. So maybe Karl-Anthony Towns would benefit from a more aggressive pick and roll coverage type of situation. Maybe that would make him a better basketball player on the defensive end. Who knows? But Mike Brown has to figure something out, because at the end of the day, you're going to need Karl-Anthony Towns and Jalen Brunson out on the floor, closing out games in the Eastern Conference semifinals, in the Eastern Conference finals, and in the NBA finals. They got to figure something out. So although I get where Greg is coming from here, I don't know if I agree with it. I think there's so many talented players in the NBA that you can win with a multiple amount of combinations, right? And I think Karl-Anthony Towns can be included in that combination. I don't think he is a net negative when it comes to winning basketball games. I don't. So I'm going to say I disagree with that. Next comment comes from Matt. He says, with all the talent still out on the market, landing on Landry Shamet, who could have been brought back a long time ago, is nothing short of a disappointment. I get where you're coming from with this. There were a lot of other players out there who I think the Knicks could have gotten. I was pretty high on Amir Kofi, and I understand that he's not like this splash free agent, but for what the Knicks needed is, a perimeter defender who can knock down a corner three, who can shoot the three. I think Amir probably fit that better than anybody else, especially with his size. You also got to realize that with the Knicks salary cap right now, they don't have money to spend. So we can't go out there and make a huge splash for anybody. We have to sign somebody to a minimum deal at this point. The Knicks went out, they got Jordan Clarkson, which was a huge addition to the bench, and they got Gershon Yabusele, who I think is going to be for a bargain for $11 million. So for what they had to work with, I don't think the Knicks did a bad job in the offseason at all. At the end of the day, when you're filling out your last roster spot and you're giving a vet minimum out to somebody, you're going to be getting a vet minimum back. That's just the way it is. You're not going to get anybody great. They were trying to swing for Ben Simmons. We saw how that went. Thankfully, in my opinion, he's not going to be on the Knicks. I don't think he's somebody who fits this roster at all. I know Russell Westbrook is still out there. There are a lot of people who are fans of him. Obviously, when you're a Hall of Fame player, you develop a fan base of people who are loyal to you and still think the world of you. So maybe you're talking about Russell Westbrook here, but I don't think Russ fits this team either. I don't think this team needs another player who defenses are going to sag off of, who can't shoot the three, right? You have that in Josh Hart. You have that in Mitch, who's getting a lot of playing time. If Huck Porty gets playing time, same thing. You need somebody who can space the floor. And because of that, your options are really limited right now. And that's why right now it's between Malcolm Brogdon and Landry Shamet. So I get what you're saying here. You wanted a bigger splash, maybe somebody who can contribute more. But at the end of the day, the Knicks just didn't have the cap space to do it. And they decided to spend their money on someone like Jordan Clarkson and Gershon Yabusele. And to be honest with you, I'm not mad at it. I think they needed to bolster the bench, and they did so. So, I don't agree with this either. I think that at the end of the day, if Landry Shamet is who you get on a vet minimum, somebody who was on the team last year, who's familiar with the roster, and who's played big minutes in huge games in Madison Square Garden for the Knicks and played well at that, I'll take it. I'll take that for the vet min. It's fine. And somebody who I think fits what the Knicks need right now. His skill set fits what the Knicks need. Personally, that's what I think. So I disagree with that as well. All right, before we get out of here, Cam Reddish is going overseas. I know he's no longer a Knick. I haven't mentioned Cam Reddish in a long time. This brings me back to the days where, he started and maybe Quentin Grimes is going to start or maybe Evan Fournier. And there was a lot of hype around Cam Reddish when he got traded to the New York Knicks midseason, and maybe he could revive his career. And the Cam high was going nuts on Twitter. It just goes to show you how quickly things can go wrong in the NBA for an individual, how people just don't pan out in right situations, how you can lose confidence. To me, Cam was always very talented. There's that video of Anthony Edwards back in high school saying that he was the hardest person to guard, that he was the best player, in his class, and he just didn't work out in the NBA. So I don't want to disparage the guy. I just wanted to give him a shout out. Thank you for your service in the New York Knicks. I do think that he's a solid basketball player. He's somebody who can play the game, obviously. Just did not work out in the league, unfortunately. And now he's going off to Lithuania. I'm trying to think of my favorite Cam Reddish moment. Maybe that three he hit to tie the game in Memphis opening night a couple years ago. He had some, good moments with the Knicks, but all in all, just did not work out here. So, listen, that's going to do it for Knicks Latest. Let me know what you think about what I said in the comment section below. Let me know who you want with that final roster spot. Any trade proposals that you have that are realistic. I'm not doing cat for Giannis. I'm not doing cat for LeBron. Do something realistic, and I will comment on it. Make sure you like the video. Make sure you subscribe. We're trying to build a huge following here at Knicks Latest going into the most anticipated Knicks season of my adult life. So make sure you do that. Drop a comment, like the video. I'll see you tomorrow for another episode of Knicks Latest. Peace.